Welcome everyone to the session on time structuring and group dynamics. In the previous weeks, we have learned about ego states, transactions, strokes, and how strokes is related to the need for stimulation. Our nervous system needs stimulation. Now, today we are going to learn about how we structure our time in such a way that we get the maximum stimulation or the maximum gratification. Let's see how it is. Because we are social beings, human beings generally move in groups. That is why we say time structuring happens when we spend time in groups. We are generally found in relationship with people and working or doing things together. So when we are in groups, how do we manage our time? Let's recall that we learned last week about the nervous system needing constant stimulation. Every stimulation works out to be a gratification, or in other words, our whole life exists only when we are stimulated. Even the sun rising and the sun setting, and the people we meet, and the breeze, and the wind, and the sun, the heat, the cold, they are all stimulating our system. It will be very hard for us to live in a place where we don't get any stimulation. But time structuring is about how we structure our waking hours in such a way as to be stimulated to the maximum with least risk. So let's see what this risk is about. This risk is a psychological risk. That is the chance that our stimulation or invitation to another person to get back a stimulation for us or a response for us may not give the expected response. Remember, every transaction is a stimulation and a response. So, the response of one transaction could end up as stimulation for another person. So, if you don't get the expected response, it is a risk. We attempted to get it, but we didn't get it. Now, the way human beings spend time has been classified by Byrne into 6 methods based on this observation. All our behaviors can be grouped in under 6 headings. That's what Byrne says. And these 6 headings are graded according to the intensity or the intensity of the strokes we get or the risk involved. The higher the risk, the higher the gratification also. On an ascending scale of risk, let's see what they are. You can see them written as risk, structure, and the kind of gratification. Withdrawal. In a group, if you are sitting by yourself, that behavior is called withdrawal, where you are not interacting with people. It is not risky at all for rejection. You may not get rejected because they are not trying to connect to people, but it gives you very little strokes. Rituals. When you meet and greet people and communicate with them, it may not be out of great affection for them. It's ritualistic. That's why we call it ritual. When you say good morning to somebody, the chances of you getting a good morning back is very high. So, in other words, it is better strokes. But there is a small risk that somebody may not greet you back. Pastimes. It is a way you pass time where you talk about other things, not about you, and you seek people with whom you can have long term relationships or other kind of time structuring like games and intimacy. We'll learn about them more. Definitely, this method gets you more strokes, but the risk is also very high that the other person may not be of your interest. When you start a conversation, that person may not be interested. You may not get the expected response back. But if you get more strokes. Activities are managing material reality, meaning you do things to earn a living. We call it activity. Like I'm teaching you, you pay me fees, it's an activity. Students go to school or college and learn. They expect a job to come and they get a certificate. But their strokes will come only very late when they get the job. That is the difference. But when they get it, it will be higher strokes. Games. We learn in details about games later, but for the time being, I'll say they are those activities in which we start off a relationship in very pleasant way and you get some positive strokes, but after some time the relationship breaks and you get intensive negative strokes. Intimacy is the most risky and it's the most gratifying. In an intimate relationship, you can sit with someone being available to that person for as long as you want, or you'll enjoy the presence of each other. This is the most gratifying experience, but it is the most risky also. It's very hard to find someone with whom you can have really intimate relationships. It is not about the physical intimacy that I'm talking here, it's about the friendship, the heart to heart relationship. In polyvagal theory, they refer to intimacy as immobilization without fear, meaning you are able to sit down without the anxiety to get up and go somewhere with someone. That's what it means. This is a pie chart showing the pattern of time structuring of somebody. See, you can see the variation in the way they spend time. This person spends about 5.6% of the waking hours in withdrawal and about 11.1% of his time engaging in games. 33.3% of the time is in activity. And there is quite a good amount of intimacy also for this person. So you can also find out this kind of pattern for you. Please go to the spreadsheet I have given you and do this exercise to draw your time structuring pattern. After you have done, come back and listen to the rest of this video. Switch off this for some time and go and do the time structuring pattern and come back and listen. What I want to talk to you next is about cycles of power or learning cycles. This is about the possibility of meeting our unmet stroke needs of childhood even after physically growing up. All religions say this. Yoga teaches you that. In transactional analysis community, Pamela Levin did some research among different aboriginal communities and modern communities, and she found that in all human communities, experience repeats in cycles and life is divided into stages. So, in a 13-year cycle, the stages repeats themselves. So, when they repeat, it's an opportunity to get what you missed earlier when you were in that stage. Let's look at that. What are the stages of growth? 0 to 6 months, when the baby is just a baby, when you need all the physical stroking and the caressing. But all parents are not able to give as much as a baby needs. 7 months to 1.5 years or the doing stage, the baby starts getting up, trying to move and go around. There's a different kind of stroking that a baby needs at this time. 1.5 years to 3 years is another kind of stroke that the baby requires. It's a time where children explore. So they need attention, but restriction and care and permission to explore. 4 years to 6 years is the time when your adult develops and your parent develops, the ego states. So you learn a lot from your parents. You learn to imitate your parents at this time. The kind of strokes they need at this time is different. And parents better be careful what is the model they are setting up for children. 6 years to 12 years, early schooling, where children interact with different kinds of people and peer pressure, and they learn things outside of home. So the kind of attention they need at this time is different. 13 to 19 years is the teenage, where all the previous cycles repeat. I don't know how many of you have observed. 13-year-old children are very close to their parents. They're trying to get back all the strokes they missed when they were 0 to 6 years. Instead of pushing them away, keep them close to you and give them the attention they want. That's what they need at that age. And all the 6 stages repeat in the next 6 years. After that, every 13 years, the whole cycle repeats. So, this shows us that there is plenty of opportunity to receive all the gratifications we need. So, those people who are aware of it and manage to get what they need at future stages live enriching and satisfactory lives. Every now and then, when we have made some achievements or when we are facing challenges, it's again another opportunity for getting strokes and growing. The importance of why we need to appreciate in achievement and care in times of struggle is because of this property of our mind. The care given in challenging times, the appreciation given in achievement, all enriches the growth of a person. It happens cyclically. Now we are going to learn a different topic called group dynamics. So we have learned till now that how we are group beings or social beings and how our interaction with our group or society gives us the gratification we need and enables us to grow in life. This is a little more different concept of how people interact in group, and this model is developed named Johari window. It's named Johari window because it was developed by Joseph Luft and Harry Ingram. What they say is life is like a window. This window has four windows: the open, the hidden, the blind, and the unknown windows. The open window is where your relationships are open, where you know about the other person and the other person knows about you. The hidden window is where in your relationships you are not very open and you hide things about you. So the other person doesn't know you better. So your relationship is not open. Blind window is where you could see about others, but that person does not know about that same self. And unknown is the potential of a group. So, what does it mean to say all these things? Each of these windows include our behaviors, feelings, and motivations. So, in an open window relationship, the persons involved know each other's emotion, motivation, and behavior. and help the growth of each other. In a hidden window, somebody is holding back, so the growth is not so well for that person as well as the other person. In a blind window, somebody is overpowering most of the time, not realizing the damages he may be doing, or sometimes some people are not aware of their capabilities, but others can see how capable they are, but not being used. Again, the group doesn't grow well when window is blind. So what happens is the unknown window of the group remains very small. But let's see what happens if the growth dynamic happens. When there is self disclosure, when you talk about yourself to your associates, the open window increases, the hidden window decreases. When you give feedback to other person in a relationship where one is blind to his capabilities or challenges or faults, if your friend can give feedback, again the open window increases between the two people. When open window and self disclosure increases, you can see that the unknown window also decreases. You can see that here the unknown window also will decrease, and so the group's potential will increase. And we also need to know, to bring the best effect, how we need to do this. If self disclosure is structured, you remember how you introduced yourself in the learning group, your name, department, your hobby, something that you're proud of, your expectations from the program. Especially the last three are probably things which you don't just tell everybody. But in a growing group, when you share that, your friends know you better, and the possibility of your team working together is higher. So, structured self disclosure. You may not talk about this in all groups. So, depending on the kind of group that you are in, the contents of the structure will vary. Now, how to give feedback? Feedback must be given using a formula, because it's something the other person is not aware of, that you are going to tell that person. So, you need to ask permission whether that person would like to hear something about him or her. If it is a positive feedback, one permission is enough, and you can say it once the person is willing to listen. But if what you are going to say is unpleasant, it's wise to take a second permission, kind of asking them, what I am going to say may be difficult, can I still say? And whatever you are going to say must be based on some observation that you had. It should not be general statements like you are no good or you are not capable or something like that. That's not a good feedback. The feedback should be I messages. It's more about how you experience the other person. So you are saying how I experienced you, and so it is I message. Now you can do this exercise of writing a feedback for someone. It could be somebody in our group, or it could be anyone whom you have come across on any observed behavior. Use all the principles and write a feedback. Once you have written it, you can pause this presentation and then write it, and then go on to the presentation on how to receive feedback. Receiving feedback is all about listening. Listen without defending. Defending means trying to protect yourself or explain about yourself when somebody talks to you about something you did. You need not reply always. You need to give a reply only if the person who gives you feedback asks you, would you like to say something to me? Otherwise, you only need to listen to it. You can either accept or reject the feedback based on what you know about the situation. Maybe something is not known to the person who gave you the feedback. You know better. But then rejection is an internal process. You never say that to the person who gives you the feedback. Sometimes people may not be aware of the formula for giving feedback. So you might get a feedback without people asking your consent. You can gently say that now I'm not interested. But again, you don't need to defend yourself. That's how you receive any feedback from anyone. So, if you work using these principles, the team wins. Team means together everyone achieves more. So, the unknown window opens up. The potential of the group is tremendous when you build your open area by giving feedbacks and doing self disclosures. The team can be great achiever. So that's all for this presentation. We learned about structuring time, we learned about stages of growth and cycles of power where you can repeatedly get your gratifications. And now you have learned about group dynamics, how to do self disclosure and how to give feedback. It's a lot. Reflect on them and connect these concepts. Have a great week. See you next week.